Hi Carpers, Mike AJ here. Welcome to my short video in how to prepare and use tiger nuts. I personally buy my tiger nuts in bulk. This is a 5 kilo bag of dried large tiger nuts. Open your bag of tiger nuts and if you can see those, there's a sample of the tiger nuts. Take a measure, whatever that measure is. I'm just using a plastic jug, and fill your measure with your tiger nuts. I'm just going to weigh that. That's 650 grams of tiger nuts. I'm going to do 2 measures of those. And that's another 650 grams of tiger nuts. For each measure of tiger nuts that you put into your pan, put 2 measures of water. And finally, 4 measures. Next thing to do is quite simply set them aside and leave them for 24 hours to soak. So the next step after soaking your tiger nuts for at least 24 hours is to bring them to the boil and simmer them for 30 minutes. During the cooking process, just give them the occasional stir. Once you've cooked your tiger nuts for 30 minutes, simply set them aside, let them cool, and then I prefer to leave them for another 48 hours for them to ferment. Hi again guys, for the next part of my video on tiger nuts, I've been banished to my garage. My wife wasn't too impressed that I was doing the tiger nuts in the kitchen. So anyway, here we are in the garage. If you recall earlier, I weighed the dried tiger nuts and we had 1.3 kilos of dried tiger nuts. Well, after soaking and cooking, those tiger nuts now weigh double that. So we've got 2.6 kilos of tiger nuts. And that's one of the key reasons why it's so cost effective to buy your tiger nuts in bulk. So now we've cooked the tiger nuts and we've left them to ferment for a couple of days. What I like to do is take the bulk of them and liquidize them. Put them in the liquidizer, give them a whiz, or put them through your bait grinder to chop them up. And the reasons for that is that when the fish eat the tiger nuts, they don't really consume them, they just crunch them down and they excrete them in smaller chunks. So if you accelerate that process by actually chopping them up first, you can fool the fish, or this is my theory, you can fool the fish into thinking that it's a safe area to eat. They come across the already partially consumed and excreted tiger nuts, and they just feel a little bit more confident in feeding, rather than put out there a whole pile of fresh tiger nuts. The fish might be a bit wary of that. So when you put the tiger nuts in the liquidizer or the food processor, don't overfill it, because from experience I've found that you end up just creating a mush at the bottom of the food processor with some of the tiger nuts, and the remainder don't get liquidized. So we'll just give it a quick blast, give it a shake, and another quick whiz, and a shake, and then we've got some chopped up tiger nuts. Repeat that process with, out of your 2.6 kilos, I'm going to liquidize about 2 kilos of them as chopped up tiger nuts to use to spot the area that I'm going to fish. So if you haven't got a food processor, or you're not allowed to use your food processor for grinding up your tiger nuts, you can also use your boilie chopper. I'm just using my Ridge Monkey boilie chopper here, but any mechanical boilie chopper will do the job. And of course you can chop more of your tiger nuts in bulk using this method. So having fully loaded the boilie grinder, it's just a case of crank the handle and chop up the tiger nuts. So that took me less than a minute to grind up those tiger nuts. So this is the end result. That's a single pass through the boilie chopper. And as you can see, we've got a mixture of partially chopped tiger nuts and one or two that are still whole. This is as close as you can probably get to representing how the carp will excrete the tiger nuts. After you've chopped up the tiger nuts, I simply put them in a sealed container and then stick them in the fridge or the freezer, ready for your session. So we've soaked, we've cooked, we've fermented, we've ground up, chopped the tiger nuts. Now the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. Let's get down to the bank, let's do some fishing with them. When we get down there, I'll show you how to make a pop-up. That was my short video for preparing and using tiger nuts. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please hit subscribe. I hope you find fishing with tiger nuts as successful as I do. Tight lines, see you soon.